All right, welcome back to another live episode of the relationship series, as we always talk about the matters of the heart and mind. My name is Gina Spatero, and this is my brother, Sam Spatero, always coming up with new topics to talk about. Sometimes they're things that, we've experienced in coaching calls or whatever's happening on the trend these days, or things that maybe possibly we've experienced in our lives as well. How's your week been thus far, Sam?
This week has been splendid, my dear.
What's made it splendid?
I know it's been good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've work is good, health is good. Back on track of working out again after that big project that we took on
Yeah.
home here, which I'll share on my social media platforms.
Mm-hmm.
You got some great advice from your BF on some ways to structure the video content, which
Very good.
are pretty awesome.
Good.
Just good, man. The wife is amazing, beautiful as always. The kids are awesome, exploring. They're out and swimming in rivers today and getting leeches all over their bodies,
No.
which is completely out of the norm of anything that they would do. So it's awesome.
How did that happen?
They went over to a local river, and
Oh.
and they went swimming in it and were doing whatever kids do in there, and they ended up getting leeches on them, but they were
Oh no.
fine with it. And Ellie especially was fine with it. So
Wow.
yeah, it was great.
That's awesome. That's
How about
so
you?
awesome.
It was good.
Yeah, a lot of good things. Getting outside, enjoying the weather. It's not so humid, which is
Yeah.
nice, but it's still hot. And yeah, just connecting with people again, which is nice. Taking on some clients, which is even great. So I can start that again. But everything else is really good. I can't complain. So I want to kick off tonight's.
Dive in.
Pardon?
I said, let's dive in.
Yeah, let's dive in. So this one, I'm kind of dealing with a client that is having this experience in the relationship. And I want to give a little bit of a background here too. So it's funny because when people meet each other, they come from different dynamics. So cultures, you know, if they've been brought up in the country versus the city, and they have like these different viewpoints of what a relationship should entail or what their spouse should have as their morals or intentions, and they soon definitely realize that sometimes if it's cultural difference, if it's being born in the West versus being born in Europe, certain parts of Europe, and their differences on what a relationship should entail. When they get together, it's interesting the friction that tends to happen. It really, really does. And this becomes their negotiables and non-negotiables, and they don't know why they're creating them or what's the big deal. And then there's this huge fight because one thinks they're right because they've lived it for so long, and then the other thinks they're right because they've lived it for so long. But they love each other, but would the love withstand the difference in opinion? Okay. So basically, I want to get into compromise versus control. Okay. Do you think that as you meet somebody, there's going to be some compromises that have to be made throughout the relationship? Is that a legitimate expectation, Sam?
Okay, so I think, first of all, sometimes it's a context of the language that we use, first of all, that makes it be conflicting or otherwise damaging to oneself.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we should maybe think of it in a context of, well, one, does the problem get derived? Well, a lot of the time it is the language that we use. We are all unique individuals who have been brought up in certain cultures,
Mm-hmm.
religions, ethnic backgrounds that just maybe conflict with the person that you're meeting right now. And maybe it's not even that. I just think we are all, look, there's not a person on this planet that has been in a relationship and has not experienced challenges in one way, shape, or form. Even if they've had so much in common, there was little conflict and little compromise. There was always a fork in the road that you hit, right? And I think that pertains to really anything in life. But when it comes to relationships, you know, I think it's just so touchy because it's like all of a sudden you're faced with this problem and we start to take it as an internal sort of punch in the mouth because it's like, what, I'm not good enough the way that I am, right? And that's where the conflict can start to, to arise. And ultimately, I know, how do you get to that compromise? And so, I mean, that would be my opinion on that. Now the question is, why? Why, in your opinion, do you think that these things happen?
I think for like especially the certain circumstance, it's just different views of what they hold true to be a part of a relationship. Where some relationships they don't sanctify their spouse as being their king or their queen. It's like there's so many outsiding factors that are so imperative to their relationship that if they can't have this, then this isn't good enough, right? So like you and I know that, when you meet somebody or when you have them as your spouse or your boyfriend or girlfriend, you treat them as such, right? So you wouldn't say that your friends are more important than, than your spouse, right? So basically, what I have noticed is the priorities are different. I'm not saying that a priority is better or worse or whatever. But so one of the main causes was gender relationships. Okay. So opposite sex relationships. So so in Europe, a lot of the times, women don't have very many male friends outside of their spouse, right? Or if it's, mutual friends. Where in the West, it is very common for men and women to befriend one another, right? And hold those friendships. And when you join those two notions together or those parties together, it's very contradictory sometimes when they try and melt the melting pot together and make it work, because it's like, well, this doesn't exist where I live and it's very much existent on this side of the world, right? So when does it become a compromise and a form of control and being like, okay, well, if we need to be together, how can I be with you if X, Y, and Z are still in the picture when it's a no for me, right? So is there a compromising boundary between those types of communication tactics? Or is it truly someone's inability to let go of control?
I think it's a matter of perspective. So
Yeah, I agree too.
I think really what it comes down to is this: when two worlds collide, and all of a sudden you start to have what's called experiences in relationships that might not pertain to what is comfortable, meaning things that you do like, which don't cause conflict and compromise, to then the things that conflict with your moral compass, the way you see the world, the way you should be in a relationship, the way your partner should be. And that's when the conflict can arise. And ultimately, the compromising starts, or it's a continuum of conflict. Right. So I think we all hit that fork in the road. Now, pertaining to, as you suggested, when it comes to having friends of the opposite sex, maybe there's some people in the planet that are extremely confident, know their value, and maybe it never becomes a conflict or something that needs to be compromised because they don't see anything wrong with it.
Yeah.
However, probably for the majority of people, that may raise an eyebrow or a situation where it might be a discussion. Now, if this is something that comes up and it's something that really means a lot to you that you find hurtful, just conflicting of your values, I mean, that's really when you're going to, one, find out what the type of person is that you're with and what they're willing to do in the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Two, you're also going to find out that who they are, what they truly value, and at that point, it can be a conflict. And ultimately, you have to decide whether or not you're going to be willing to compromise for the other, or
Right.
is this the end of the road? So I think really what it comes down to is a few things, and that is, what are you comfortable with? What are you not willing to compromise so that this doesn't become a conflict anymore? But however, a lot of us are taught along the way in the life to say, what are your musts, what are your wish lists in relationships, or what are your non-negotiables?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen. Where it literally shows up is when you're in the situation, when you're in that relationship where you all of a sudden meet somebody who maybe, is doing things a little differently in the relationship
Right.
than you might do.
Yeah.
And it might pertain to that, and it'll likely pertain to other things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, by nature, we are all different, whether it's heterosexual relationship, bisexual, whatever it might be, you will always come to that fork in the road where you have a different lens in how you see what's acceptable, what's not,
Right.
what might be offensive, and what isn't. And so, in the world that we live in, as this will be something that is a continuum for all generations, I think really what maybe the focus could be is how do you, number one, process what is about to happen, then go about it in a way where you're not betraying yourself, what you believe, what you value in a relationship and in a person, and then find a really intelligent way to approach it so you avoid a conflict and maybe, share your perspective in a very intellectual, empathetic, and compassionate way, so they don't maybe feel like they're compromising, but rather an exchange of values.
Yeah.
Right?
I think realistically, I think in any relationship, there's going to be compromises. And I don't feel like you always have to feel like you're at a loss for doing so. I think it's just in the nature of forming a bond in a relationship with, I think it's just the way it is, right? There's a give and take in all of it. However, I feel as though the difference is when the control factor comes in, when you feel like you're losing part of something that means a lot to you, or you feel like you're walking on eggshells if something happens. That's a little bit different. And you have to decipher, okay, because sometimes you're going to be the one that needs a little bit of a compromise or vice versa, right? But that control aspect comes in where your identity, which once was, is not being honored, and it's changing, not because you're willing. It's the unwillingness and the fear that steps in. The fear of, okay, what's going to come of it if I don't do this? Okay. So if there's a fear attached to a decision-making component, I think that's a little bit more of the control aspect, where you can't have a legitimate conversation or communicate with, okay, well, what's the best case scenario for the both of us, right? If there's that fear component of, okay, there's going to be, I know the end, there's going to be conflict. I know that it's just going to end up with a fight or an argument based on A, B, C, and D. I think there's a little bit more of a control value there. And then the compromise is where it's like, it feels comfortable for both of you. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. I think really what it can be is a clash of personalities, a
Yeah,
clash
agree.
of self-esteem, a clash of self-worth, because let's face it, there are self-actualized people who know what they want in life and they're not willing to sacrifice. And then there are those who come into relationships or situations where, you feel like you're giving a part of yourself away because the fear kicks in of being alone, or sharing how you truly feel and standing your ground and knowing that it's something that means a lot to you, but fear, supersides the intelligence of our emotions and our beings and ourselves, right? So you walk away giving a part of yourself away. And I think really, if you want to talk about the conflict and avoidance, I mean, I know very well when it comes to my relationship that if I am got something that I need to say and I'm not processing it intelligently and I'm looking at it like there's going to be a loss, there's going to be an exchange of negativity, or there's going to be no air piece piercing through, or you just can't seem to find a way that, with every ounce of your intelligence, you're going to find.
Let's see if Sam comes back here. I think what I interpret him saying is that, yes, you have to have an intelligent conversation about it, and to decipher truthfully, you know, not anticipating that it has to be a negative outcome, but that if you can come to a solution based scenario, then it's not control. Okay. So if you feel comfortable with the outcome, absolutely. There's going to be compromises in a relationship, no doubt. I mean, two different people, two different individuals are coming together, forming a unity. There's going to be differences of opinion, morals, beliefs, values, but it doesn't mean that you can't piggyback on them and see the good in them as well. But when you come out of it and there's a control factor and you feel like you're losing a part of you or an identity that's being lost because someone is telling you no about a certain thing that you believe so highly in, then you have to decide if that goes in your negotiable or non-negotiable category, because there's so often people are deciphering, well, is this normal in relationships? Is it normal that I'm being told to do this or be this? And like Sam said, the more you have an identity for yourself, the fear of that loss subsides. You are certain within yourself, in your righteousness and in your soul, that you have purpose. And if this person is going to be on your side, they will ride with you. And if they don't, you need to know where their place is as well. So on that note, yes, there's going to be compromises in a relationship. Understand the difference when you're carrying fear based on a result or the need to make a decision. Then you're entering the control because it's not sitting well with you. It's uncomfortable, and you feel as though there's a part of you that is at a loss. On that note, this is the relationship series, and please don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell to support our channel in its growth, and share this with someone who might need to see it as well. Ciao for now.